In the gospel passage that we have today about the man born blind, we discover in this some really wonderful principles of what our Lord is about in his public ministry, right? The reason he came into this world, right, is to reconcile us with the Father, yes, right, but to renew all things that had been affected by the fall of our first parents. And we know that two of the effects of the fall, one was that that suffering and death came into the world. That's true, but also the personal effect on us is the weakening of our will, right? It became more difficult for us to choose the good in all things, and a darkening of the intellect, right? That it became more difficult because of sin, right, has affected our ability really to grasp the truth of things, right? Our intellect has been dimmed. We can become blind, if you will, right, intellectually and spiritually. This is a result of sin, right, of sin having come into the world. So with this man born blind, the Pharisees who right, they're unhappy about the way that our Lord, first of all, that he healed the man on a Sabbath, and to some extent they're upset that he healed him at all. But the man, there's some inkling of truth in what they say about him. They say, you were born totally in sin, right? But their idea is that he's physically blind because he was somehow, this is the result of his parents' sin, which is not true, right? It's not the way that things happen. But every one of us has a certain amount of spiritual blindness because we were born with original sin, right? That's true of all of us. So there is some inkling of truth in what they're saying. The man was born totally in sin, as all of us were. Not Jesus, but all the Pharisees themselves and this man, right? We have original sin. And so the kinds of blindness that affect us, right, are either physical blindness or spiritual blindness can afflict us. All of us, to some extent, know what it's like to be blinded because you've gone from the bright outside and you walk into a dark room and you can't see a thing, right? And so there's darkness. There's no light in there that you can see, right? And so you feel blinded. You trip over stuff, right? You run into furniture and doors. We've all experienced that. But the opposite is also true. If we go from a dark place, right, and throw a bright light switch or step outside into the bright sunlight, you can't see, right? You're blinded by the light, as one famous song puts it, right? So we can't see because there's too much light, right? Also a problem for us. But those are temporary problems. What happens? Our eyes adjust, we're able to see, and we go on with things. But if we're truly blinded physically and we don't have the ability to see, there's no reflection on our spiritual state. But if we are blind to spiritual realities, we are truly blind, right? We're truly blind. If we refuse to see or cannot see our own sinfulness because of pride, we think we're better than other people, right? That somehow God owes us all these things, and we become blind. And greed does this. Almost any of the capital sins will lead to spiritual blindness. We see this, for example, in the scriptures of the rich man and Lazarus. Lazarus is starving to death on his doorstep, doesn't see him, right? He has no concept of this man's pain and suffering and desperation, right? Lets him starve to death on his doorstep, blind to that man's suffering. Why? Because he's rich. He's satisfied. He thinks that all these things are his and his alone, that he's been blessed, and the concerns of other people are not his problem, right? Blindness. And that can happen to us, right, in the spiritual life. So when Jesus heals this man, he's doing this in a way that it has so much meaning, first of all, of what Jesus has come to do for everybody in the human race. Jesus came into this world to be the light of the world, to help us see, but also to heal our blindness. right? To take away the scales from our eyes. He puts mud in the, right? He makes saliva and dirt and makes mud and puts it in this man's eyes and sends him to wash in the pool, right? Which should tell us something, that that's a symbol of baptism, right? The washing in the pool. Just like last Sunday we had the woman at the well, this Sunday, right? The man born blind. Why? Because that is, to some extent, the condition of all of us. Born blind. We're blinded by the effects of original sin. And baptism, right, is what washes away what ails us, right, through Christ. Then we can see. That man could see, right, and he came to faith in Jesus Christ. That's what baptism does for us, right? It takes away original sin, right? And then we begin to be enlightened by Jesus. Then we can see light, And Jesus is the light of the world. And he has told us that we are to be the light of the world. But we can't do that initially, right? We have to be first healed by Jesus Christ and then enlightened by Jesus Christ through the gospel, through the teaching of the gospel, through the sacraments, by prayer, right? By doing good works. Those things enlighten us so that we truly see ourselves, right, as sinners who have been forgiven, and our neighbor as people who are made in the image and likeness of God, that we are called to serve. And when we see that's the reality that Jesus Christ has laid out for us. But the other things in our life are what blind us to that, right? But baptism is the beginning of that. It washes away original sin so that we can begin to see the true light, Jesus Christ, who has come into this world. So the Pharisees, they're the ones who get blinded by the light of Christ, right? They refuse, even though they've seen this man get healed, they look for testimony from his parents and from he himself, who says, yes, I was born blind and now I can see. They say, how is that possible? He says, I don't know how that's possible, but right, the man who anointed my eyes and sent me to wash, he would know because he's the one that did it, right? He didn't know who Jesus was. But Jesus healed him, and then we see that the man came and Jesus revealed himself to him, and the man worshiped him, right? Became a follower, a believer in Jesus Christ, right? So that is the destiny for the baptized, right? We are born in sin because of original sin. Baptism washes it away, and then we become enlightened, right, by Jesus Christ. And we become people who can also be a light for others. Something that Jesus enables us to do. Apart from that, we cannot. The blind cannot lead the blind, Jesus tells us, right? They'll both fall in a pit. So if we have yet to be enlightened by Jesus Christ, then we need to work first, right, on letting Jesus heal us, wash away our sin in the sacraments, enlighten us with the gospel, with the scriptures, enlighten us through prayer, right? Enlighten us by living the life of the gospel. Then we can be a light to others, right? That's why Jesus says all those parables, right? Take the beam out of your eye so that you can see, to take the splinter out of somebody else's eye. Starts here, right? We let Jesus affect us first, and then we can lead others to him and lead others, right, to be a light for them in the world. Powerful, powerful reading today. It's used today during the lead up to the time of Easter, because today we have with us those elect, those who will be baptized at Easter, and I will call them forward now with their godparents for the second scrutiny.